Today's guest is the inspiring Peter Thurin, international keynote speaker, mentor, author, and founder of Easy to Do, Easy Not to Do, Your Choice. From owning successful pharmacies to earning his black belt in Taekwondo and speaking across the world, Peter's journey is all about action, discipline, and purpose. His simple yet powerful philosophy has transformed lives and organizations globally. Get ready to hear from a man who embodies resilience, energy, and the courage to get in the game, Peter Thurin.
Peter Thurin, my dear friend of some 25 years, welcome to Everyday Heroes podcast by Kofkin Bond. And you are a repeat offender, by the way. So this is your second time, isn't it?
It's taken you a while to invite me back, though, Tony.
It has, but it's the new law. It's a silver fox, mate. I need the world to see it because you're telling me that apparently you were getting phone calls from people in that photo I posted of you and I.
You started this.
You had the silver hair. I just took the photo and posted it.
At least it gives people a reason to talk to me now. They're sort of bemused or they're, I don't know, moved by the colour of my hair. But there you go.
What happened, Pete? Who frightened you? He turned silver
My
overnight.
granddaughter, who turned 11 recently, said, "Papa, stop dyeing your hair." There you go. So I finally listened to somebody. And I thought everyone thought it was natural.
Somebody of influence, mate. Always listen to the grandkiddies. Yes,
Absolutely.
I haven't been blessed with any yet, but Josh, Gabby, if you're listening, so I would not be unbelievably happy. Now, Pete, we've actually known each other for some 25 years. We both met when we were very young men. We're still young at the moment, young at heart as well.
No question.
Yes, but you've actually inspired, including myself, countless people, hundreds of thousands all around the world over the last 30 odd years in what you actually do. But you got this message, which I absolutely love, and I've used on many, many times. Easy to do, easy not to do, your choice. Can you take us back to that mindset and where that first began for you?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And whatever the challenge, whatever the goal, if you want to change your life or your business for the better, you have to choose to do something. And no matter what, choosing to do something is easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And that's your choice.
Yep.
And I found myself talking about easy to do, easy not to do for a very, very long time. I'm not the first person to say it, I'm sure, but I own it. And I find that really quite interesting. In a different life, I owned retail pharmacies for 20 years, and then I stepped outside of that and traveled the world speaking, mentoring, consulting. And we'll talk.
How did you actually go from being a very successful pharmacist to a world-renowned speaker?
Look, I think, I had 20 years of owning and operating retail stores. And I think I woke up one morning and decided I'm done. I've sold my quota of jelly beans. Just maybe there's life outside the four walls of a pharmacy. They're still wonderful. But I know for certain that I used to talk in terms of easy to do, easy not to do. And I was getting messaging back from all around the world, from presidents of companies or for people who had only been working in a business for a week or so, saying, "Pete, this easy to do, easy not to do drives me crazy, but good crazy. I'm lying in bed and it's snowing outside and all I want to do is get under the blankets and I can hear you saying easy to do, easy not to do." So I'm out walking in the snow, or a situation where a person I'd worked with in Denver, Colorado sent me a long email when I had returned to Australia, and he said, "Pete, I have been estranged from my dad for 30 years, and I could not get easy to do, easy not to do out of my headspace." And I was petrified that I was never going to speak to my father again. He maybe didn't care, and I was going to lose him at some point in time. So a simple phone call to my dad, I focused on what was easy to do, and it's brought us back together again. And I started to really understand the power of this simple philosophy. So it's been a part of my life ever since. And of course, I had to rebrand. I'm jumping all over the place here a little bit at the moment. We'll go back to pharmacy and then come forward again. But Following on from pharmacy, I travelled the world with a presentation called Black Belt in Excellence, which
When we
incorporated,
first met.
yes, when we first met, which incorporated martial arts and corporate speaking.
Hey, can I
And
just interrupt you
yeah,
there
please.
just for a moment, if that's okay?
Yeah.
As you know, I've also done martial
Mm,
arts for,
mm.
well, for 14 years and did boxing in that as well. But it was actually interesting because when I first heard you speak was at a colonial conference,
Yeah.
Colonial
Yeah.
Mutual Life. I
Yeah.
don't think they're around anymore, but up in the Dandenongs,
I
Mount
remember.
Dandenong. And I was the speaker before you, and I must admit I was quite intrigued about this next speaker, black belt in excellence, who owned pharmacies and is a third dan black belt in Taekwondo. What the hell is he going to talk to? My financial planning message was about financial planning to 400 financial planners. What the hell is this guy going to talk to a bunch of 400 overweight, grumpy, predominantly male planners? You blew me away. But I was intrigued because you went from pharmacies, black belt, third dan black belt, and was traveling the world talking about change and things like that as well. So that talk was something that just absolutely inspired me to go and take action to do
But I
things.
think one of the things that really attracts you and I together is the fact that you have this amazing openness and willingness to learn. You are so, with what you've achieved in your own life, you are still so coachable because you want to be better today than you were yesterday. And you and I speak.
Any of my coaches I like.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I understand that. People who you respect. And I think, too, people who've actually done what they talk about.
If they haven't done it, I'm not
And
interested.
that's a really big thing for me as well. You know, the credibility, the experience. And certainly for me, I've got the determination and the enthusiasm and the experience to work with people to get into the game, whatever game it is they want to play, to rise to whatever challenges present. And there will always be challenges in life to ultimately be remarkable by their definition. So if you want to be the best financial planner in the world, you've got to get in the game. You've got to go to university and you've got to get that banking and finance degree. And then there'll be challenges because then you're combining family with work, with keeping fit and healthy. And there are challenges all of the time. But if you want to come out the other side and be the best financial planner or advisor in the world, that's your definition of remarkable. Mine might be different to yours. But I know that when I came out of pharmacy and then traveling with Black Belt in Excellence, as I was saying to you before, it got to a point, when we hit that very challenging time in the world with the pandemic. It's very difficult to break wooden boards virtually. So I was forced to transition, to adapt to a new world, to rebrand. And if you go to my website today, peterthurin.com, you'll see that everything is around easy to do, easy not to do, your choice. And look, it was a simple phone call that changed my life, which was so easy to do. You know my story, that I was an 8-year-old little boy who had a dream to be a black belt in martial arts, but did nothing about it until I turned 36. And it was a simple phone call. And that phone call was booking my first martial arts lesson that got me on this journey that changed my life forever. Coaching junior footy and a black belt in martial arts were the drivers for putting black belt in excellence together. And that gave me 25 years of traveling the world. Extraordinary, really.
Yeah. I remember the first book you wrote, but we spoke about, from martial arts perspective. I know my master, Master Tay, Ivan Tay in Tang Soo Do. You were a white belt, and then several years later you got your black belt, but you were
Yeah.
always a beginner. But and I think it was, and Chuck Norris did Tang Soo Do.
A bona fide, wonderful martial artist.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Hairy chest.
Very, very hairy
I
man.
love that film clip with Bruce Lee. That carpet he's got
But a
on his
serious
chest.
martial artist.
Unbelievable martial artist. But he, when martial arts really came to the US, and they put the stripes on the belts and then the different color belts.
Yeah.
So you saw your progress. And it was actually really interesting because I was talking to, he's retired now, but Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Tyrrell, who we both know very well, good school friend of mine, Kyle. And one of the interesting things he said, well, he's a Krav Maga master as well. He was also a state junior boxing champion as well, by the way. But with Kyle, he said one of the great things about martial arts is like the army. If you meet a major, you know exactly what he earns or she earns because they all earn exactly the same. So you can see your rank. if you've actually turned up to, you've now got that. I remember you telling the story when you got your first stripe and your white belt, and you came home and you held that belt like above
Mate,
your
I was
head,
playing
and you
aeroplanes
celebrated.
around the house.
That's right, and then you didn't realise that everyone always passes that first. So I guess
No one
I
has
just-
ever failed that grading.
That's right, and you're really happy that you went
Can I
first.
just make a point, though?
Yeah.
I think about this a lot, even with the rebranding and
Yeah.
moving from black belt in excellence, martial arts, to really the big message, easy to do, easy not to do. Martial arts, for me, has had a profound impact on my life because the metaphor, nothing to do with learning how to fight, the metaphor of having the courage to start something new and those small steps that you take consistently over time that leads to massive achievement. You preach that in your financial advice that you give people, the compounding effect of taking those small, consistent steps over time will lead to something massive. If we focus on a black belt, then sometimes it's so daunting, it's so far away that people won't have the courage to make a start. What martial arts did for me, it showed to me the power of taking those small steps. And I always knew where I stood because the grading said so. A lot of people do advise, though, that life is lived moving forward. So always moving forward. Don't look in the rear vision mirror. I don't necessarily totally agree with that. I think sometimes that we need to look back just to appreciate how far we've come. Don't get too smug about it and don't sit there for too long. But sometimes it's okay to have a look back and say, you know what? I really have taken positive steps forward. Now it's time to reset and go again.
Yeah, very much so.
Martial arts for me has been a fabulous metaphor for life.
Yeah.
And that book that you alluded to is called Be the Best You Can Be. And really, it was just anecdotes and stories of my journey from making a start, or the dream as an 8-year-old little boy,
Yeah.
all the way through to having a black belt in martial arts.
Yeah.
I'll just say, too, that a black belt in martial arts, what it said to me, having, because I can hit a tennis ball against the wall doesn't mean I'm ready to play Roger Federer at Wimbledon. A black belt gave me a solid foundation on which to grow. And
But also too, one of the things that I think comes from it as well, let's say you and I are walking down Collingwood together,
Mhm.
and you're a well-dressed, silver hair, distinguished gentleman, so you're not a big build, you're a very healthy, fit build, a
Mhm.
very, very healthy, fit build. And if we got confronted by a gang of youth and
Yes.
something like that, I'd probably look at me and look at you and say, I think we'll go for this guy first because he looks like an easier target. But if we're both walking, because I'm just a bigger guy, okay, so it's a couple inches taller and a few kilos on you, quite a bit, probably. So it's, I estimate
Those are your
quite a bit.
words, not my
No,
words.
probably about 30. But it's but interesting. If we were both walking down the street and I was dressed like this, and you were dressed and you had in your uniform and you had your black belt on, all of a sudden the amount of respect they would veer away from you. Doesn't matter what you look like, because there's just something about that black belt, wearing that black belt, that all of a sudden people pay you respect. When people turn up to the dojo for the first time and they see this person with a black belt, they know that person's put into work.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because especially the first example that you gave in Collingwood, I would be right behind you and push you in front. So problem solved for me, and all I have to do is run faster than you.
I can do grumpy face.
No, it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And look, when I first started martial arts, I in fact thought it was all about learning how to fight. But I learnt over time, learnt fairly quickly, that really had nothing to do with learning how to fight. It became part of my life, and even this today. And I'm not looking to get into fights. That's for certain. But it's nice just to have a little bit of confidence, just to know. And sometimes just the talk, that you can, if I'm going to be confronted, to let that person know, look, someone's going to get hurt here, and it just might be you. So you might want to stop and think about, So, but I think as we've got older and a little bit more mature, what you have, I'm still struggling with the maturity bit. But
it's only because I'm on camera, Pete.
But I think that the concept of how you apply the principles of martial arts to life, for me, is much more important. And it's something that I really do take with me wherever I go. The 3 pillars that my business are built on today are about having the courage to make a start, get in the game.
Let's go to that.
It's a very martial arts thing, though.
Yeah, but a lot of people, you at the age of 36, you decided you're making that phone call.
Yeah.
But a lot of people hesitate to do, and I actually sometimes think the more intelligent people are, the more they seem to overthink it.
The longer you put it off, the less
intelligent man.
Well, the longer you put it off, the less likely you are to do it.
Yeah.
The longer you put it off, the less likely you are to do it.
Yeah.
I got to a point in my life where enough was enough. And often it's driven by disgust of self.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just over me saying that this was a dream I had. It was now time to do something about it. Time to do something about it. And if you think about, when I talk about easy to do, easy not to do, everything is a choice between easy to do and easy not to. And it is your choice. And this was about the doing. Let me make it very clear. Good intentions will never get the job done. You actually have to do something. And that first doing, which was easy to do but easy not to do, was a simple phone call. A simple phone call to book my first lesson. Somebody says to me, I want to play guitar. Oh, but as if I could play, like Jimi Hendrix. Well, you'll never play like Jimi Hendrix if you don't go buy a guitar. It's one thing to go and talk about. I want to speak fluent Italian. I'll tell you what, I'm even going to give you the program for how to speak fluent Italian. 3 words a day. Would you agree with me that that's easy to do? Well, it is. It's easy to do, but it's easy not to do. 3 words a day, 5 days a week. It's 15 words a week. That's 750 words by the end of the year and probably a couple of sentences. And in no time, you're riding your Vespa around Rome speaking like a local.
Buongiorno, come stai? Ciao bella, ciao bella.
It's the getting in the game. And there are always challenges. Like I'm saying, get in the game, rise to the challenge, be remarkable. So if we're going to talk about speaking fluent Italian, get in the game, 3 words a day. There'll always be challenges. I've got so much work on and I've got family. There'll be challenges always. You've got to find what works for you to ultimately be remarkable. And definition of remarkable in this case is speaking fluent Italian. So there's that process. Martial arts has been that wonderful metaphor that has taken me on that journey. Get in the game, rise to the challenge, broken bones. I've got plenty of trophies to show you, bruises, sprains and strains.
Crooked fingers,
yeah, that's part of the deal. They're the challenges that we face to ultimately be remarkable. My definition in that case was having that black belt tied around my waist.
I remember when Josh, my oldest, was quite young, and there was this guy, and he was built, and it was a great physique. It wasn't an Arnie Schwarzenegger steroided physique. It was a really, really great physique, and he was probably like 6'3" and 6'4", and could have been AFL football. And Josh just looked at me, he goes, so Josh would have been primary school time. He goes, oh, Dad, do you think I can ever be like that? And I said, absolutely you can, but you got to see, it's a lot of hard work. He just wasn't born like that. That is so much hard work and dedication to actually look like that. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, he would work out in the gym a minimum of an hour every day, number one. He would not eat junk food, number two, because, you don't get to look like this. Okay, he's growing tall. That's DNA basically. So it's, it's in the genes. But to get to look like that is a lot of hard work and dedication. I can guarantee you something too, son. He is constantly in pain every single day because the amount of hard work that he has to do in the gym, and the amount of sacrifices that he has to make by not drinking, not smoking, not doing drugs.
Too many late nights.
Yeah, I was trying to have this conversation with my son at the time, obviously, but it's such dedication. The better you look, you don't get to look like that without being in pain every single day.
Mate, I've had a discussion with a gentleman I like very much. He's driven me to the airport and back many, many, many times, and we are the same age within a few months, and his tummy is quite a bit bigger than mine. And the first time I got into his car, he looked down at his tummy and looked at mine and said, Pete, how come yours is and mine is, and we had a bit of a giggle about it. He was sort of playing the victim a little bit in that he has umpteen clients and he sits in a car all day driving.
My wife is such a good cook.
Well, his wife is a very good cook, but he enjoys his food. His way of doing business, he arrives 15 minutes or so early before he picks up a client. Now, he might have 8, 9, 10 clients a day. Even if you said he had 6 clients a day, he arrives 15 minutes before departure time, and then he rolls his car down the street and parks his car outside my house with about 5 minutes to go, just to let me know that when I'm ready, he's ready. If he got out of that car just on 3 occasions and went for a 10-minute walk, this is a gentleman who says to me, Pete, I don't have the time to exercise because of the work I do. Not difficult to find 3 lots of 10 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day, 210 minutes a week. That's 10,920 minutes in a year. That's 182 hours he's just been gifted to focus on his health and well-being for somebody who has looked at me and said, Pete, you wouldn't understand. I don't have the time. So not everybody has an hour to go to the gym, but I would imagine that most of us can find those bite-sized chunks of time. And even if it's 5 minutes, practice the piano for 5 minutes, practice the guitar, 3 words a day, speak fluent Italian, 5 minutes. Find what works for you. As I said, get in the game, rise to the challenge. His challenge is that he's driving cars. So he's sitting a lot, but he arrives early to pick up every client, get out and go for a walk. It's easy to do, but he's choosing easy not to do it. And again, the beautiful thing is it's his choice.
One of the things you just mentioned there was consistency. Doing it all the time, and sometimes it's a case of, I've always said, get comfortable with doing the uncomfortable, to the point where you don't. It's no longer uncomfortable. You just do it. In actual fact, it's uncomfortable not to do it. But it's when you talk about that, he's got 10 minutes. He's there 15 minutes early. He's got that 10 minutes. He can do that 3 times per day, and all of a sudden there's was 182 hours that you've just given him in respect, it was longer in respect to doing that over the space of a year. And he's probably done, as a result of that, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of steps, which actually helps with everything.
Absolutely it does.
And you're not eating when you're actually
He's feeling so much better about himself.
But you're talking about consistency. But how,
it's key.
How does consistency become that habit when the motivation fades?
So let's...
Everyone can be motivated. It's that 7 minutes of inspiration. What happens? It's doing it when that motivation. And you did a video, I think it was yesterday, you put out about some mornings are cold. And you don't necessarily want to get up.
But once you get going, it's amazing how that compels you to keep going. Let me just tell you something. I was challenged on the word progress recently, and progress starts with, first and foremost, showing up. Just showing up puts you ahead of most people. But what I've learnt on this journey is that being a sometimes person doesn't work in your favor. You really need to be an all-the-time person. So doing something from time to time won't serve you as well as doing something consistently. What I do with companies, what I actually do in my why, what I love when I get up in the morning, is that I have this wonderful opportunity to inspire people and organizations to be better versions of themselves by focusing on what matters most to them. Now, I want to be really clear about that. By focusing on what matters most to them. So when you talk about consistency, it is much easier for me to be consistent when I'm focused on what matters to me. Very cliched, but if everything's important, nothing's important. So let's sit down. You tell me that your health and well-being matter to you, then I'm going to hold you to it. And one of the things I do, and I warn people up front, because as you know, a lot of my life is spent consulting to business and mentoring. I say to people, be really careful what you say to me, because I'll hold you to it. So if you tell me that you love your 6-year-old little boy, then I'm going to expect you to be home for story time. If you tell me that your health and fitness matters, and I'm going to expect that you're going to go for you walk around the block and maybe hit the floor and do your sit-ups and push-ups. Easy to do, they're easy not to do. But I think it's much easier to be consistent when you are focused on what matters most to you. I'll say it again, if everything's important, nothing's important. You can't be all things to all people. But when I made that decision, for example, that I wanted that black belt in martial arts, being consistent I was so driven by it. And I had wife, 3 kids, 3 pharmacies at that time. And I was busy. So when people say, it's all very well for you, Pete, but you've got no idea what's going on in my life. I'm so busy. No, I don't know what's going on in your listeners' lives. And I totally respect that. But that's why I'm saying be really clear about focusing on what matters most to you. And then they become what I love calling your non-negotiables. Your non-negotiables. Let's stay really focused on those. And I think you'll find that consistency will be something that you'll be driven by, because that's when you start to see progress. Only by consistent behaviors.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes you have to get people on your side, and sometimes people in your life might be the detractors of those behaviors as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's
and tough when they're family members too.
Very tough when they're family members, or making excuses, So it's, there's, I remember saying to the boy's mum once, she would always bring junk food home.
Yep.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, can you do me a favor? Can you not bring that junk food home? The reason being is if I see it in the pantry, I eat it. If it's not there, I don't eat it. And she said, well, maybe you can just learn to control yourself. It's easier just to get divorced.
Both right, but you're both right.
100%.
But you're both right. I think the key, I think really what you're saying here is that ultimately, and this is, look, I think we're all still a work in progress.
That's right.
But
yeah.
you need to take responsibility for your life. And I think this woe is me, playing the victim, pointing and blaming. As you've heard me speak before, we don't get to control what happens to us mostly in our lives. But 100% you get to choose your response. So you don't necessarily control what is brought home by your partner, but your response is you eat it or you don't eat it. Somebody can push you. Okay, you can respond by picking up a chair and hitting them over the head with it and stabbing them 37 times. Or you can respond by saying, that behaviour, Pete just pushed me, so out of character for him. There's clearly something going on in his life. I need to go for a walk around the park with Pete. That response is going to lead to an outcome. All right. So I think that the key here is to take responsibility for how you respond. And so for me, it's around the questions that we choose to ask of ourselves. So if something happens to me, I have to look at me. If business is going well or not going well, if I'm not as fit as I'd like to be, or if I'm struggling in a relationship, I need to start asking myself some questions. Pete, I'm asking you, I'm not pointing or blaming. What do I need to do more? What do I need to do better? Sometimes doing more, the same thing doesn't serve me well. So just maybe what else do I need to do? Or you and I have discussed previously, one of the most powerful questions I've asked of me of late is, who else do I need on my team? You cannot create a business of significance on your own, and to achieve greatly the power of collaborating, of really going shoulder to shoulder with people who you enjoy working with, who you respect, and to what you said before, people who have actually done what they talk about. So the credibility is massive. I see keynote speakers around the world on stage, and in 20 seconds you work out there's a small business speaker, and clearly he's never been in business.
Actually, Bella and I were just talking about that before. Sick to death of university professors teaching courses on how to run a business who have never actually owned a business.
It's outrageous. It is outrageous.
Fact, they've never left the school system.
Well, we're not going to talk politics today, clearly, but there's no politician that we've got here that's been in business.
Not if it's been recorded.
No. No, but I mean, they've not lived life.
Correct.
So I think you have to have done what it is that you talk about so you can share those experiences.
How has the corporate landscape, speaking landscape, actually changed over the years for you? I mean, your message is, it's not a complicated message. It's not a mathematical equation that we all have to sit down and work out and struggle hard. It's just basically get off your butt and do it. But how has the corporate landscape changed? Because, some 30 years ago, there wasn't the HR, there was different generations, so I'm that, I think you're Gen X, are you?
I'm baby boomer.
You're a boomer? Okay, so I'm Gen X. I'm at the older scale, just under the boomer.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always said I'm the generation that offends everyone. I offend my parents. I offend my children.
You do it well.
I do. I'm the leader. I've got a black belt.
You've always been the best at what you do.
Absolutely, I strive. Strive to be. I'm very good at offending everyone. I just say it how I see it. So it's but if I'm wrong, show me where I'm wrong at the same time. So I'm happy to listen to you if I'm wrong. But the corporate landscape has certainly changed. I remember, and I've told you the story 100 times, but the first motivational speaker I ever got to see was Zig Ziglar down at the old Dallas Brooks Hall.
Yeah.
They're apartment buildings now, but it's and going there, and I was so motivated. I walked out of there. I bought 3 of his books. I was pumped, and then 7 minutes later, I'm back in the office doing the exact same stuff. So how has that landscape changed over the years?
Look, I think that people are
dealing, say, with Bella's generation now.
I think people are way more cynical.
Yeah,
the rah inspiration lasts a moment, and I look at myself as the chief inspiration officer, but I create motion, really clear around the steps that you need to take. So this is not rah-rah for the sake of rah-rah, that lasts, as you've just alluded to, lasts a moment. But I think there need to be tangible steps that people need to take. And so it's one thing to set a big picture goal, but I work with people to I want them to develop the courage to take that first step. Now, what's that first step going to be? And once you've taken that first step, sometimes you fail forward. We don't get everything right, but that's part of the learning and growing. If we keep making the same mistakes, we know how that plays out. So it's learning from, my first foray into business was a disaster. It was a failed partnership. And I thought, woe is me. Business at that time, I just worked really, really hard, and I learned that.
How'd you pivot the mindset from that? Because you're only a young fella then.
I was, and I'd given a lot of time, effort, and all the money that I had at that moment in time had gone into that partnership, and I came out with less than what I'd put in, and it was a tragedy, and it was a nightmare, and think of all the, the words that you don't like very much. That's what it was for me. But we don't, no, I wasn't, but it made me realize that we don't always know at a given point in time or a given moment in time whether something is a positive or a negative experience. And what it enabled me to do, well, first I went back to coaching tennis because that gave me a time to take a big, deep breath and reflect on what I liked, what I didn't like, and then to reset and then get back into the game.
For our listeners who don't know, Peter was a very, very highly ranked tennis player.
Yeah, I was a good tennis player as a kid. And I then bought a pharmacy on my own, with the banks. But in those days, the harder you work, the more you made. And for the first 3 or 4 years, I worked every single day. And I mean every single day. And we started to build businesses that were very successful. I learnt early on that, so not being overly financially savvy as compared to my friend Tony Kofkin, but I did realise that I needed more money coming in than was going out, and that I had to create environments that brought the best out in my people.
Financial planning 101, mate. Spend less than you earn.
And well, that's what I discovered.
Yeah.
We
always pay back the debt.
Straight away. Well,
yeah.
That's really interesting because I developed a reputation that when I bought stock, I paid for it immediately.
Yes.
And when opportunities presented, like if I had a business in the built on the prestige skincare, fragrance, and cosmetic houses, Christian Dior, Estee Lauder, Chanel, Calvin Klein, etc. And I was the beneficiary of always the best deals because they knew when they dealt with me that they always got paid up front. And whereas other pharmacies had the reputation,
you didn't have to hold your debt for 90 days.
Well, if people string it out, then you develop a reputation for that. And I was always of the mindset: if somebody's done the work, they deserve to get paid. If somebody's delivered the stock, this has to be paid for. And to this day, my gardener, who's a beautiful human being, laughs at me because he has his invoice says 30 days, and I had a fight with him over that. He says, "Why are you fighting with me?" I said, "Well, why would you wait 30 days? You've done the work. You deserve to be paid." And so
you've got a lovely garden, but I'm assuming it's not $1,000 bill per week.
Oh, well, we won't discuss my gardening bill. And I know we're jumping around all over the place a little bit at the moment. You asked me about business back then and business today. I think that sometimes we do get caught up on political correctness today as opposed to back then. I would never intentionally disrespect another human being. It's just not how I'm built. But I think sometimes if we get caught up on, I was telling a story. This is going to offend some of your listeners right now, what I'm going to say. Somebody in their 60s.
You want me to tell it?
You know the story.
Yeah.
I was telling one story about one of the young ladies that worked in my pharmacy. And she, at 16 years of age, me, 60s, and I refer to this really beautiful girl that worked in my pharmacies. And I got into massive trouble for referring to a 16-year-old female as a girl. And one of the delegates wrote a letter to the CEO of the company. Who does that boy think he is, referring to this young woman as a girl? And what upset me about that mostly was that I think that this particular person had come to the event to try and find fault in the speaker as opposed to challenging herself to take something constructive, something positive out of the talk that she could implement into her own life. So I'm much more aware of that now. I do my very best not to offend people deliberately, but hopefully people will challenge themselves to take something away from my story, because it's not about my stories. It's about taking meaning from the story and then have the courage to implement. So that's back to that first step. And then the second step, what I've learned about the best in the world, the best financial planners, pharmacy owners, the best teams, the best organizations, is they learn to find it easy to do the things that others find easy not to do. Again, the power of that simple philosophy. Coming back to the doing.
Peter, let's talk about when people are forced to make change.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're forced to make change due to, now yourself, myself, and Sunil Bentley, we call it the next chapter, that we're working on at the moment, helping people transition to whatever that might be. Sometimes that forced event could just be due to leading an unhealthy lifestyle and illness. And that illness has been, they've survived it, but it's been a wake up call. Sometimes it's a case of they've been a neurosurgeon for 40 years and it's a case of,
That's a real life example, as you
I
know.
know, yes. So it's a case of, well, what next? I want to transition. I want to do things. Or sometimes it's a divorce, or sometimes
Be made redundant.
it's a business failure. Nick Bell was in here as one of our guests last week. So his episode will come out before this one. But, Nick made the comment. Everyone knows Nick of being Mr. the $600 million man, the judge on Shark Tank and all the rest of it. And he's a young guy, he's 45 years old. But at the end of the day, Nick, you've been involved in 60 odd businesses. Tell me, how do you keep picking winners? And he goes, well, out of every 10 I choose, 9 have failed. So it's, but you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. So he said, but if I didn't try that one big one or those 5 or 6 really big ones that I've actually had,
Mate,
but I didn't fail on the other 9. So he just kept moving forward. So making that change, the change in mindset.
there are so many things to, you just covered so many things just now. I mean, the cynics would say, well, it's all very well for Nick because he can afford to take the losses. But I'm saying there are people that focus on the reasons why not to do things as opposed to why they should be doing things.
He divulged this on the podcast. He's about to do a $400 million purchase of a business. He can't afford that to go wrong.
No, I understand. And even when you talk about somebody with ill health, as we said before, and this works both positively and negatively, small steps taken consistently over time leads to massive achievement. So but if you stick a jam donut into your face for breakfast, for morning tea, for lunch, for afternoon tea, for dinner, and a sneaky one before you go to bed, jam donuts stuck into your face consistently over time leads to massive achievement.
Well, I can guarantee you it does, because I had to eat 6 Krispy Kreme donuts a day to put on 13 kilos to swim the English Channel.
Yes,
and that was the only way that I could put on weight. So I had to go from 92 kilos to 113 kilos. So I can guarantee you that does lead to success. But at the same time, Pete, the damn thing got cancelled and I never got to do the swim because of COVID.
But you enjoyed the food along the way.
I can't even look at a Krispy Kreme donut now.
No, look, it's only, I think that all these learnings, all right, so somebody of ill health forced into change. I had a friend of mine who had a heart attack. He was in his 40s. And I remember friends dropping over to his house and they're all commiserating with him. And I walked in and I said to him, you are the luckiest person in the world. And I know if he could have, he would have punched me in the face. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, you've been given another opportunity. You can continue to work out at the local pizza store, or you can start to work out in the gym, but it's your choice. And these are choices that we make. Sometimes, and it's interesting, what started when I first spoke to you some time ago now about transition and about the next chapter was brought about by, I was stopped by a neurosurgeon, and he is the best in the world at what he does. And he knows my story, 20 years of owning and operating retail pharmacies and then making the transition into speaking, consulting, mentoring, and where that went to, and wanted to talk to me about that because he realizes that he's now in the twilight of his career and that the next generation of neurosurgeons are coming through. But he's got, I hope, another 25 years of healthy living. So where to from here? Before we came online today, I shared a story with you. I got a phone call from a grandfather who loves his grandson. The grandfather is nearly 80. He wants me to sit down with his 16-year-old grandson because this young lad is going through a transition in his life and his parents are separated and life is different, and would I be good enough to sit down? So the variation in age, transition can be enormous. It can be starting a new school for a young kid. It can be a relationship, can be career change, so many things. And I think that one of the big advantages that you and I keep coming back to is that you and I have both lived a little bit of life. We have real stories to share. And I think too that what it's done for me is reinforce the principles that I talk about. Get in the game, rise to the challenge, be remarkable, is as powerful transitioning, getting into a new game, rising to different challenges, and there will be, to ultimately be remarkable. Let's be clear as to how you define remarkable in this situation. It might be living a healthy, happy life going forward. One of the issues I spoke at a conference a little while ago, and theme was great, road to success. But at no stage did the company define success. So I'm on the road to nowhere, really. I don't know where I'm
A
going.
talking head song,
And
but it's very true. We're all on the road to nowhere.
so let's
Yes.
get some clarity. And the first thing that I would do, and what I do with people, as I said to you before, if everything's important, nothing's important. So I inspire people and organizations by helping them focus. I want them to be better versions of themselves. And how I do that is by working with them to focus on what matters most to them. That's the starting point. Let's get some clarity around that. Right. So even in transitioning, people transition, and it's been brought about again. You don't always get to choose what happens to you in your life, but how you respond is 100% up to you. The two things that you control 100% are your attitude and your work ethic. So what do I now choose to put into it? Here come the questions again. What do I need to do more? What do I need to do better? What do I need to do differently? What else do I need to do? But again, the big question, certainly through transitioning, is who else do I need on my team? I've got to speak to a Tony. I've got to speak to a Tennille. I want to sit down with Pete. He's been there and done that before. He doesn't just talk about it. He's actually lived it.
You've made major transitions in your life.
Yeah, a
Mm.
massive transition in my life. You know, I don't. Somebody once said that none of us will live long enough to make all the mistakes ourselves, so we may as well learn from other people's mistakes. And what I do largely is just share some of the learnings. And as you know, I tell stories, but it's not about my stories. It's how people take the meaning from those stories and then have the courage to implement into their own lives. I giggled because I got a call the other day about a school reunion, and one of the boys I went to school with knows that English wasn't my favourite subject, and I struggled in English. And they couldn't quite get their head around that I've written 2 books. So when people want to stereotype you and saying he's shit in English, how the heck did he? If we get caught up in listening to all the negative nonsense of other people, so academically, I didn't enjoy reading books at school, so I didn't read them, and hence it showed quite clearly in my English
I bet
results.
you enjoyed movies.
Yeah, I preferred sport and the company of the opposite sex mainly. It was my focus at school. So academically very immature. But as I went on this journey, like in my pharmacy days, most of my reading centered around, drug knowledge and had businesses to run. And when I transitioned from pharmacy to keynote speaking around the planet, I had to start, and I went on this lifelong journey now, putting something into my system every single day. And I hold myself to it. It might be starting off with something that's inspirational. It might be a quote. It might be a book summary. It might be reading 10 pages out of a book. Easy to do, easy not to do. As if I could read a book. Well, start off with 3 pages. As if I could get healthy. I've done no sports since leaving school. Get out of bed 10 minutes earlier and go for a walk. As if I could play guitar. Book your first lesson. These things are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. And I'll say again, the beautiful thing about all this is that these choices are yours to make.
For some of the best coaches in the world are unbelievably coachable and others aren't. As we said before, there's, you mentioned before that, one of the definitions of crazy is that, well, you didn't say this, but, just alluding to it like what you're talking about with the donuts, but the definition is crazy is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different result.
Mhm.
But also, if you're doing something constructive, whether it be that exercise every morning, etc., doing something repeatedly, you will achieve that result. Now, the result could be putting on 30 kilos because you're eating Krispy Kreme donuts 100 times a day, or those Daniel donuts look quite good too. So it's, or it could be that you're training every day and you're watching what food you put into your mouth and the results are physical and you can see it. So you're actually going to achieve those results. But adding to that, my father, non-smoker, non-drinker his whole life, lived through a lot of stress but internalized it. And as a result of that, he retired young, which he shouldn't have done because he became totally inactive and didn't have a real social group around him.
Purpose and meaning in his life.
Exactly right. That is 100% correct.
Yeah.
He put
so
on a lot of
important.
weight because he ate the wrong foods.
Yeah.
And he was a stress eater.
Yeah.
So he would eat the chocolate sprinkled donut in his car because you saw the sprinkles in his car before he came in to have dinner. So you'd hide that, that he was doing that as well. He had a stroke at 62, heart attack at 64, triple bypass, 3 more heart attacks in the last 6 years of his life, Alzheimer's before he passed away. So zero quality of life. And I've decided that, I'm not going to die or have a stroke at 62. All of a sudden, 60 is only 4 years away from me now. It creeps up on you. But I've spoken about the fact I want to live to 105. I don't want to live to 105 to be kept alive by
Absolutely not.
having things replaced and taking drugs and things like that. So, for example, brain health. I now take creatine. So a very simple thing that has no side effects, natural to help with brain health. I've actually just engaged 2 weeks ago a coach, and the coach is from physical fitness side and from a food side, and he's helped me with everything. Like, for example, if I'm going to a restaurant, because as you know, I eat out a lot in this job, I will tell him where I'm going. He'll actually have a look at the menu and tell me what to order. So that's how he's the point is since I've actually engaged him, because I've got the gym at home, because I don't like going to a normal gym and having to wait for kids to do their Instagram photos on when they're doing a bench when I just want a bench, and I get grumpy at them. And being that grumpy old Gen Xer, I have my own gym at home. But what I've actually done, and it's set up beautifully. I spent quite a few dollars on it, but being held accountable, in the 2 weeks, I've lost 3 kilos. I've dropped 4% body fat. I'm not hungry. In actual fact, I said to him the first week, this is too much food. I can't eat this much food. But it's the proper food. But because I have to record everything, Pete, because I have check-ins with him, because I can send him messages, all of a sudden now I'm not sleeping in anymore. I'll get up at 5. I do have the time to do it. But also our friend Kate Save from Be Fit Food, who we both know. If you take Kate as an example, I said one of my problems is I'm time poor when it comes to going home at night to prepare food for the next day. So I actually sent him Be Fit Foods website, and I said, "Can you look at this? Can you tell me, is this the quality of food?" And he looked and he said, "That is actually really good stuff." So Tony, because I know you get up at 5, I know you do all the stuff because you record it all, you do everything you have to do. If this is going to save you time, just fill up their fridge with her food. So in other words, there's always a solution. You can make the
Can
excuse.
I just say, I think what's
So
really important here for me is that the people listening to us today understand that that's Tony's story. How can I take the message from Tony's story and implement that into my own life? And what you're doing for me is really reinforcing the power of the questions. What do I need to do more? What do I need to do better? What do I need to do differently? What else do I need to do? Who else do I need on my team? You're really clear around your health and fitness. You've made the statement, I want to live to 105. I need to go shoulder to shoulder with somebody to enable that to happen. So there's the question. Who else do I need on my team? You've engaged the services of someone that's helping you with your health and fitness and your nutrition. It makes sense. Can I say it one more time? Good intentions will not get the job done. You actually have to do something. You've engaged the services of somebody else. So everything really that we've spoken
he's
about
done
today,
it. You have a look at him. He's done it.
I,
Yeah, and
well,
that's
because
that's one of the great things.
so there's the credibility.
He's
It's-
not 120 kilos
Tony,
fat
when I first
PT.
wrote that book, Be the Best You Can Be, I had to be really clear. Imagine going on stage then as a speaker and being 35 kilograms overweight. I think people would look at me and go, there's a breakdown in credibility here. So it also serves to keep you honest. You hear me talk all the time about easy to do, easy not to do. 2 sit-ups and 2 push-ups turns into 3, turns into 5. I wouldn't dare come in as an invited guest on your podcast having not done my push-ups this morning or done my exercise this morning, because that to me is fraudulent. I'm actually preaching, but I'm not doing what I'm talking about. So it keeps me really, really honest. Easy to do, easy not to do. And I love the calls that I get and the messaging that I get around how it has changed people's lives. And I've shared this with you previously, I got one of the most beautiful emails from a gentleman in the States who said, Pete, I was not a happy version of myself before I heard you on stage. He and I have actually maintained contact over the last number of years. But when he first sent me this message, he said, I was not a happy version of myself. He said, through easy to do and easy not to do, I have become a better husband, a better father, and a better lover. And I thought, finally, easy to do, easy not to do, has made it to the bedroom. And the point he was making to me was that he just felt so much better about himself.
Confidence, energy, enthusiasm.
Yes, but it's about the doing. And this is a terrible generalization, and I do say this a lot. My generation, and I'm certainly talking about me, not always very good at asking for help. And I think that what you've done, engaging the services of this particular coach, Julian, it reinforces how important it is. And I, I am very much work in progress there, with regards to
Yeah,
engaging the services of others.
what's interesting, I do this with him online, which is something I've always preferred face to face, and especially COVID drove me insane in not doing things face to face. But it's he's up in Brisbane. But one of the things he did, even in respect to the weights, I said, listen, I can do weights, but my neck always gets stiff afterwards. And so he actually sent me the videos of actually how to do them properly. So for all this time, I can't do it 2 days in a row because my neck gets stiff and all the rest of it. He sent me the videos of how to actually do them properly. And doing them properly, I haven't had any stiffness in the neck. I've had no right shoulder issue. I did a wonderful swim after 5 days in the gym last week. I did an amazing swim on Saturday. And it was just like, and I was speaking to him on my regular weekly check-in on Tuesday, and I said, those videos are fantastic. It's learning to do it properly, because one of the things is, Pete, you can go and learn to do Taekwondo by watching YouTube videos, or you can get punched in the face and kicked by Andy. And that's one way to actually learn. That's how you learn to block. If you don't like getting punched in the face, you learn to block.
As we know, Bruce Lee of martial arts fame once said something along the lines of, nobody has ever earned a black belt reading about martial arts.
Yeah.
At some point in time, you've got to get into the arena. You've got to make that start. And so if I think about some of the things we've been speaking about, you spoke to me, asked before about consistency. Firstly, get in the game. Take that first step. Have the courage to do that. Do whatever it takes to bring that about. If it means engaging the services, going shoulder to shoulder with a buddy, someone that you can share it with, whatever it takes, get in the game. And then it's always about those small steps. And if there's a day that you don't feel like doing your half marathon, get up and go for a walk. Once again, progress is around consistency. It's around the doing. The starting point is always showing up. All right. And then it's working towards becoming an all the time person. I talk a lot about the difference between being interested. I meet lots of interested people who are interested in being fit and healthy, people who are interested in having a better relationship with a loved one, people who are interested in being financially free or financially savvy. But I don't meet a lot of people who are truly committed to bringing this to life. Yeah. And for me, that commitment, I honestly believe it. It's easier to be 100% committed than it is to be 98% committed. Because 98% committed means that, well, it's a bit windy outside today. Today, I choose not to do it. And once you don't do it today, it becomes easier not to do it again tomorrow. Right. Whereas if I'm all in, and I know that you're at the door waiting to go for a run with me or waiting to go for a walk around the park with me, I am not going to let you down. If it means do it with one of my grandkids, for example, then I'm not only am I spending quality time one-on-one with one of my little people in my life who I love more than life, but we're getting fit and healthy. We're talking about all sorts of things. So there's always find what works for you. Find what works for you, have the courage to get in the game and bring it to life.
And also too, Pete, I think as Simon Sinek would say, well, what's your why for doing it? As one of the questions Julian asked me, and he said he was really interested in my answer, because he said most males he speak to, it's about getting the summer bod and being physique ready and things like that. And I said, yeah, I get that. And don't get me wrong, I like to look good, and it's, dress well and gives you that little bit more confidence in life. But for me, it's not going down the same health path as my father. So my why is different. And I'll just close off this part before I get to some rapid fire questions for you, Pete. But it's a colleague, an ex-colleague of mine who we're still very dear friends, but we're once talking about, marathon runners, a couple of guys in here who are training for the marathon this year. One is an elite runner at school, and he's back to running great at the moment. But he said, I could never run a marathon. And I said, it's rubbish. Of course you could run a marathon. He goes, no, I could never run a marathon. It wasn't a bad run. He doesn't like running. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. But I said, yes, you could run a marathon. He goes, Tony, I could never run a marathon. I said, if you were getting chased by a hungry bear for 42.1 kilometers, I guarantee you could run for 42.2. And he goes, haha, yeah, but that won't happen. I said, okay, what about if somebody had your son, your 2-year-old son, and said, if you don't run this 42.2 kilometers in less than 4 hours, you will never see your son again. I guarantee
And I
you,
can feel the veins inside my neck come out when you say that,
I
because you do whatever
guarantee
it takes, wouldn't you?
you would not even think about walking or stopping to get a drink of water.
Now, can I tell you, I think what you're saying is so important. It's no different. I go back to writing a book. I do not like writing. I rather talk than write. So again, it's about finding what works for you. That book came about because I traveled everywhere with a dictaphone. I'm not even sure if they still exist, but I had a dictaphone next to me in the car. And every time I thought of a story, I would just pull over to the side of the road, pick up the dictaphone and talk in the dictaphone. Just speaking to Bella in your office, and she just made me smile because I was thinking about a story when I was studying, and bang, there's the story.
It
I'm
has
like,
that effect on everyone. You see in the room.
and that's how the book, story after story. Then what I did, I had a serviced office at that stage. I had all these little cassette tapes of all my stories. I took it to a young lady that worked behind the desk at reception. I said, can you do me a massive favour? Whatever it cost me, with absolute pleasure, but would you be good enough to type this up for me? And that was the first bit of feedback I ever got on my book, which didn't even exist at that stage. He said to me, Pete, I've never enjoyed typing anything as much in my whole life. Listening to your stories, I was so inspired just listening to what you had to say. And then I rearranged things and I had a book. And it's about finding a way. Find what works for you. And my way works for me, may not be for you. All right?
Absolutely.
Find what works for you. And I think too that, again, this comes back to the choices that we make. Again, can I just throw the questions? What do we need to do more? What do we need to do better? What do we need to do differently? What else do we need to do? Who else do I need on my team? I think I keep asking those questions, Tony, because I'm trying to embed them in my own headspace because,
You've done it pretty well, mate. So.
yeah, look, we've done some good things, and but just getting started. Honestly, just getting started.
Correct.
And that's how I feel about life.
Absolutely. Couple of rapid fire questions for you, Pete, to end up on. So, and we did speak beforehand. We'll see if we can actually do rapid fire questions, you and I, but we'll give it a crack, eh?
Rapid fire for you is going to be a challenge.
Yeah. So let's go.
Let's go.
What's the first thing you do when you wake up? Speak off.
No, I get up and get going. First thing for me in the morning is about, I want to get out and get my exercise done in the morning. My favourite thing is watching night turn into day. So I love getting up when the rest of the world essentially is still asleep and get into my day.
Coffee or tea or a green smoothie?
I do have a strong 3/4 latte to start my day. This has happened to me 3 or 4 times now. I had a meeting last week with the chief. I'm almost laughing saying this to you, with the chief inspiration officer of a company, which is what I think of myself as. But he spoke like this and it wasn't very inspiring. And we met in a cafe and he ordered an Earl Grey tea and I ordered my coffee and he leant over the table. The funniest thing he said in 2.5 hours was, Peter, quite seriously, you don't need a coffee. And I felt like saying, no, the coffee's for you.
Might have said to Bella before you walked in, keep the Red Bull and sugar away from him.
But I think, can I tell you? But I think, but part of it is, I get asked a lot about, the energy and the enthusiasm. I think it's a genuine love of life and the fact that I honestly believe that I'm just getting started.
Oh yeah, we've had a doubt. Spoke about reading before. What's one book every entrepreneur should read? 1 or 2? Oh, you do a lot of reading.
I was talking to my youngest boy about this. I walked in one day and he had a book on just on his shelf, and I said, "Buddy, where did that come from?" And he said, "Oh, we were recommended to read that," and that was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I still go back to. The 7 Habits are still really meaningful, and a book that was, I think, first published in 1936 that I had never read, which was the other book that was sitting on his table, was Dale Carnegie's How to
Influence
Win.
and Influence
Yeah,
People.
I'd never read it.
I've given that book out at least 100 times, Peter.
Well, I actually went and bought it and read it, and it is just based in such common sense. 1936, I think, was the year.
Well, actually, I think you're right there. I actually bought that for Lauren here. And because she said, what book should I read in respect to, so I actually bought that book for her and gave it to her. And now I said, now, you're 22 years old, so I'm going to say a couple of things here. This was written in 1936,
Yeah.
so excuse the language in it. And what I mean by the language,
Yes.
it's a different type. Yeah, so it's a different type of. You'll see some religious connotations in it, but if you think back in 1936, religion was a big part of people's lives and things like that. But just listen to the message.
See, again, it's challenge yourself to take something out of it
She's
and then have
lovely,
the
by the way.
courage to implement, as opposed to getting all caught up in the political correctness of that generation. Today, I'm big into the Stoics at the moment,
So am I, actually.
and
Have you read the Ryan Holiday book?
I've read 4 or 5 of his books, and he's got
Holiday, not
a
Holiday,
new
yeah.
one coming out again now on wisdom. But yes, and it forces me to think about all sorts of things. Tony, when I first started doing what I do, like I was having a bit of a giggle before about my English at school because I didn't enjoy reading. Now I get to choose what I read. And initially it was all sporting books, which I had to get in from America because there was nothing here that were inspiring me. Over the journey, I've challenged myself to read, other books, obviously, because I need to, and I need to keep putting something into my system. If I'm consulting to different organisations and I'm encouraging them to read. And when I travel, I love meeting general managers of hotels because I want to know if they're leading their team, what are they reading? And would you be good enough to share something new and different with me, which is what I've been doing. So a book that I've read recently, which came about, was a recommendation from a GM of a hotel in Asia, was a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, which is a book that Will Guidara, I'm not trying to promote him at all, but when I read it, Unreasonable Hospitality, it's creating magic moments for people. And I'd love to tell you that's what we're doing in our pharmacies. And all of these examples of unreasonable hospitality, I will say to you, are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. And we get to make these choices every day of our lives. So it's just reinforcing my philosophy to life.
You speak about that, and it's we had a guest a couple of months ago. She's become a good friend, Sarah Murdoch, and she just won the National Pharmacist of the Year. And she's young, in her early 40s, 2 young kids. And what's actually interesting is before the podcast, she said, because her pharmacy is near my mum's house, she said, why don't you just pop in and have a look at the pharmacy? So I did. And one of the things I noticed, which I certainly don't get where I go and get my prescription filled, but every person that walked in knew her name.
Yeah.
She knew she's the pharmacist. She wasn't just dispensing the drugs and selling the jelly beans. She gave advice. She spoke. She was the person who spoke to everyone. Whereas, if you go to Chemist Warehouse, they're all behind the screen and you never get to speak to any of them like that. I find actually Star, when I go to Star in Q, they're a little bit there because they're not hidden behind, but everyone knew her name.
Hey, can I tell you?
She actually had one of her patients or customers or walk in, not to buy anything off her, just gave her a Sunday meal for her and her children that night. And I'm sitting there going, it's unbelievable. This is Peter Thurin. This is everything
Mate,
Peter has always spoken
it's
about for the
all we had.
25 years I've known him.
All we had to differentiate ourselves was us. I had boutique pharmacies taking on the big brands, genuinely caring about people. Can you believe this became our greatest differentiator? Yes, we have to be innovative and creative. Yes, we have to think outside the box. But first and foremost, it starts with being brilliant inside the box. And that's, for me, is what we became outstanding at. And it comes from a different place. It comes from a really special place. But we got to know the families and we got to know about the kiddies and we genuinely took care of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you weren't in business, what would you be doing?
I think I would be doing what I'm doing right now. I don't think of myself being in business at all. I think you know me pretty well. When you and I go to a table, if you see me sit down with somebody, I want them to be better leaving the table than they were when they arrived at the table. And for me, my why is I get up, I have to believe I bring real value to the table. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant because I don't mean it in that way, but I'm on this planet, I think, to inspire people, as I said to you before, to be better versions of themselves by focusing on what matters most to them. And so you've really got to get to know what matters to them if you're going to impact on their lives. I say, and I get asked a lot, how long will I keep doing this for? And I think this really answers your question. And I say genuinely, I hope I'm doing what I'm doing until the day I die. I hope that's not for a little while yet. But
You've got about another 4 decades of doing this.
well, it's only the good die young. I'll be here for about 500.
I'll back that up.
Thank you, mate. That's a different podcast.
It is. So it's you've met so many entrepreneurs and so many business owners and CEOs, but can you name an entrepreneur that you really admire right now?
An entrepreneur who I really...
Even if you haven't necessarily met them, but somebody on the surface
I'll tell you what I do
admire,
admire about, without naming a name, but I was given a most wonderful lesson by the president of a company in the States. And if you think that you're busy or I'm busy, he runs a global company, and he said to me, I love sharing this story because it just keeps embedding it for me. He said to me, Pete, come and sit down with me. I'd come off stage speaking to his team of people, and he was so generous with his feedback to me that he wanted to sit down with me and share something with me. I was truly blessed. He said, can I give you a sense of what I do to start each year? And I said, please. Open up this old school, old fashioned, which I still have to this day, diary. And he says, the first thing I do to start every year, I sit down with my EA, and anything and everything to do with my children goes into my diary. It can be school sports day, parent teacher interview, anything to do with my kids goes into my diary. They become untouchable, not negotiable. So if you want me on that, the next thing that goes, what he called 6 bonus weekends. That's for him and his wife. Him and his wife. That is a Friday and or a Monday attached to the weekend. 6 of those go in. Now he's traveling the world, but they go in. Again, if somebody wants one of those days, really sorry, Bob's not available. So for me, that was possibly the beginning of my focus on what matters most to you journey. What are your non-negotiables? When I think about entrepreneurs and busy people, I think we get so caught up, so many of us, how busy we are or how special we are, and even entrepreneurs. I mean, some of them are doing a lot of good. But again, I'd love to bring it back to focusing on what matters most to you and making sure that we deliver on that. So the entrepreneurs and the really successful business people I've met on my journey are the ones that actually do what they talk about.
I think that is absolutely beautiful. I would never miss one of my kids' sporting days. And I didn't care whether they were good at it or not. You just
coaching junior footy, I was told by a father that it's different for you, Peter. You love football. I said, you're missing the point, because he was never there to watch his little boy play footy. Even to this day, you may have noticed on my wrist, I have a bracelet that has 5 names of my 5 grandchildren. And if somebody's giving me the you-know-whats, I just look at that and it makes me smile. That's perspective for me. The fact that was brought about by my kids and my grandkids, it makes me smile. So it just keeps me, again, focused on the things that matter most to me. My way is not necessarily the right way. It's just what works for me. And so what I'm encouraging people to do is find what works for you. But again, the power of the questions. The big one for me had been, who else do I need on my team? For you and me to sit down together, and you give great clarity to financial awareness, and you speak in a language that even I can understand. And I think that that's really important. I think that's really important. And if you come into my pharmacy and I'm talking to you about tubular reabsorption and the half-life of a drug, you have no idea. But if I say, Tony, take the red one before brekkie and the green one before you go to bed at night, and you'll be back on the bike by Wednesday morning of next week.
I'm taking those. I'll be taking the pills.
Speak language.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the most underrated skill in business?
Genuinely caring about people.
100%. Let's just leave it at that one, because that is 100%. It's if you have to, from my perspective, I've said to all my team in here, we are the custodians of people's lives, not their money. If we mess up, their lives can be totally ruined. If you mess up with their money, we are the custodians of their life. And I've often said in some of the talks that I've given, if I ask a client who are the 10 most important people in your life, my name should never be on that list, ever. Okay? Unless it's my kids' list. But anyway, so it's but my name should never be on that list. I should only come to the forefront of their mind when they need it the most. when they're about to retire, when they're about to have that change, when can I afford to do this? For them, it's a quarterback, an idea. That's the only time. I should never be the most 10 important people in their lives, in their 10, until they need us. And when they need us the most, we're always there
Yeah,
for them at all times.
absolutely you are.
Yeah.
I can absolutely back you up on that. I, please, when I say that, really clear on saying genuinely
Oh,
caring,
but I
caring
know
about
that in your pharmacy as
caring
well.
about people and
Yeah.
like can give you too many examples of people that talk it up and then do not deliver, or that we're built on family values. I'm thinking, gosh, it's not a family that I want to be a part of. Or there's sometimes people, it's not genuinely caring. It's when it suits them to care in
Well, the
inverted
story
commas.
you just told about Bob the president there, he obviously genuinely
Oh,
cares about
amazing.
his business, but Jesus, he genuinely care about his family.
Oh, amazing, man. And as I say, that he's really clear as to what matters most to him. That was the first thing that he attends to, and it's not negotiable. It's not to be touched.
He hasn't got a happy life at home. He's not going to be there at the business. He's not going to be performing well in the business.
Yeah, look, and
Something's going to
I'm
give.
the beneficiary of that wonderful story that he was good enough to share with me. I think he enjoyed watching. And what was really interesting is that I was flown over there to speak at an event and facilitate a workshop, and then he asked me to stay back because I stayed back for an extra couple of days because he wanted to bring in the partners of the people that work for him to listen to my message. So it was really just the most extraordinary gift that I was given by this human being. So I really value that as a life lesson.
What's your guilty pleasure after a long week?
Mate, I love a cold beer. I love a glass of wine. I don't wait till the end of the week for either of those. But and I drive my wife nuts on many levels. But I,
Aaron will attest to that. So,
please
so
don't ring her. Take my word for it.
you must hate to having sold her business and retired now. Peachy gets to see you more.
Well,
So,
that's why I've maintained an office outside of the house,
yeah.
because I think it's much healthier. But my guilty pleasure, for me, everything's a balance. I exercise every day, so I don't begrudge myself having a glass of wine or a cold beer. I still love my chocolate, but I eat a lot of good food. But I eat a lot of food that you probably look at me and go, Pete, really? Yeah, really.
The show. So it's
Again, it's the doing.
exactly right.
As I said to you before, one of my favourite things is watching night turn into day. So I'm up and I'm out.
Well, you've consistently, virtually every day of your life, done some form of physical activity and exercises nearly the day you're born, or since you could probably walk, which is why you can have that chocolate bar and still look
And
the way you
that's
do.
exactly how I rationalise. That's exactly how I rationalise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly
And
right.
my favourite thing, that's my guilty pleasure. My favourite thing is anything to do with my kids and my grandkids. I'll do anything and everything to spend time. We're going away as kids and grandkids in 3 or 4 weeks. We've rented a house and we're all in together. And I'm like a kid in a toy shop. I'm beyond excited. I can't wait.
So, if you could give 21-year-old Pete a word of advice, what would it be?
I think don't be afraid to ask for help. I've gone even my first foray into business. My the person I went into partnership with, he came to my home. I was at home at my parents' place, and my mother disliked this human being in 20 seconds. It took me 6 years. I was never very good at asking for help or guidance. Even coming out of that, buying a business, selling a business, I've always gone it alone. And then I wanted to speak for a living. There are plenty of people that have done that before me, but I sought guidance and counsel from no one. Uh, I think if I was to go back to that stage, I say have the courage to ask for help. That's probably for me. Even around financial savviness, I sort of said tongue in cheek before I learned that I needed more money coming in than was going out, but I really needed to sit down with Tony Kofkin and say, mate, I need guidance and counsel here. How should I invest? What should I invest in? And that would open other discussions. I understand that. But I was never very good at asking for help. That's something that I would probably address as a 21-year-old kid.
I've often said that asking for help is an important part of life, but you still have to do it.
Again, it comes back to the power of the doing, and that's everything that I talk about today.
Absolutely. Um, 3 words people would use to describe Peter Thurin.
Can I throw that back at you?
No.
I'd love to say, certainly, I get a lot of energy, enthusiasm, all the words around that. Genuine. I asked a gentleman recently, why does he keep putting me forward for speaking engagements? And he looked at me and he said to me, Pete, because you genuinely care. And I said to him, I'd have those words on my tombstone. He said to me, I can arrange that for you. We know each other well, but I'm proud of that. I hope that doesn't sound. I hope that's okay for me to say that. I think certainly enthusiastic, full of energy, and inspiring. They're words that are thrown back at me a lot, but the genuineness is really about caring about and for other people. If you ask my kids, and even Father's Day card was that he just does for us without asking questions. Or if we ask him, the answer is yes before we've even finished the question. I hope that some way answers. That's not really 3 words, is it? But I think it gives you a snapshot of what matters to me as well.
Yeah, I'll throw one word in there. Lovable.
Thank you, mate.
Finish this sentence, Peter. It's the last question. Success is
Being really clear as to what matters most to you and bringing it to life.
beautiful. Peter Thurin, thank you for your time this morning. It's been sincerely appreciated.
I've loved every moment, mate. Looking forward to the next one.
The Kofkin Bond podcast is a product from Kofkin Bond and Company, which we are an authorized representative of Count Financial. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional, finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decision, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from the podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Kofkin Bond website, or you can find resources on the ASIC website and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Kofkin Bond & Co. and the hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.